Greetings, my friends, and welcome to Stretch Tile Bracelet. This is a really fun project I've been dying to bring to you, and I'm glad that today has come. So watch it through once, see how you want to make yours, and just enjoy yourself. It's just a great fun project. This class focuses on using UV gel and transfers to make a tile bracelet. We're going to make a couple extra things if you'd like to, that's optional. But we're going to concentrate today on the bracelet, and this is what you'll be needing. I'm using the Lisa Pavelka UV Light, Lisa Pavelka Magic Gloss UV Resin. And that's how I got that glassy finish, that little bit of a domed kind of look on the tiles that you saw in the photograph. And it's really easy. I'm crazy about resin. I work with it all the time, and I've got piles of stuff I made out of it. But the problem is, resin takes 24 hours to set. It does here where it's damp. You may be getting it in 18 hours, but the point is the same. You've got that wait time. And there's a lot of instances where I want to sit down and make a project and be finished with it. So this is that kind of project. So we're making the bracelet, and we're using Sculpey Primo. I used their new sparkly clay, mixed half and half with white. And I'm so happy I did, because there's a deep sparkle that comes up through these transfers. I just didn't even know that would happen. And it was a happy experiment. I wanted to pass it on to you. So for our material today, I mixed one whole package of the Sculpey Primo accents in the yellow gold glitter. You could use the white gold glitter, and you could even use the copper gold glitter, which is just gorgeous. Anyway, that's the one I used, and I mixed it half and half with Sculpey Primo White. So I had a lot of material. I made it into long strips in a #1 setting, which is the thickest on my machine, and that's how I got it ready to use. I also used this Sculpey wavy cutter, this little rectangle. It comes in a set with several shapes so that you can make different things with it. It's pretty cool. I used translucent liquid Sculpey for my adhesive today, and I think I've showed you weld bond and bacon bond and even super glue and stuff. This is a project where I really want the glue to be neat and not squeeze out the edges, and that's why I chose the TLS, or translucent liquid Sculpey. You could also use your bacon bond or your weld bond if you already have that. I used tweezers to place the transfers, and you'll see why in the video. If you've got a set on hand, it might help you out. You'll also need water. I use spray water rather than having a bowl of water out on the table where I'm always going to knock it over. So I just use my little magic bottle here and spray these. They're decals or transfers, same thing. And you spray them on the paper side with water, or you dunk them in water to slide them off of here. You could also kind of use one of these, and this is a little lighter. It's a butane lighter. It's got that shape to it that really helps when you're passing it over something that's laying, horizontally. And what it's for is to take the bubbles out of the resin. I can't believe how well it works. They told me I needed a torch. I thought, well, where am I going to get that? I'm going to get burned. How do I? Well, it wasn't even that. You just need a little lighter, and this one that's curved really works. It was only $4 at the mini mart. So I'm also using these space bars. They're $3 for a dozen. You probably find a better deal. That's what I paid on eBay. And they're really neat. I've used them a lot. They're really pretty. So the only other thing is your stretch cord. I use this 8mm because that's about the size of the holes, and that's really what determines your stretch cord. So we'll talk about cord later. There's lots you can use, but for this project, I use this one. I'll start the bracelet by cutting out my shapes. And I'm going to make as many of these tiles as I want in my bracelet. So I'm going to take my tile, and I'm going to put on it a transfer. And the transfers come in the sheets like I showed you, and you just need to cut them out. And I take a minute to cut them out really nicely because they have really cute little borders on them and stuff. So you want to see what you want to keep in that. The only thing to remember about cutting is it has to fit on the tile. If it's hanging over the edge or, has any kind of problems with fitting, you really can't cut it very well once it's taken off this cardboard paper backing thing. I'm going to take this one while it still has the backing. I'm going to try it on. It just barely fits. I'm going to trim it back just a little bit at the top. You know, the reason is if a part's hanging over, it's never really going to be stable. So just remember that you want a good fit and everything else will flow together after that. Okay, so now that's clearing my edges and I know that none of it's going to be hanging off. So let's just set this over here and spritz this with some water. It doesn't take very long for this to come off the backing. So you're just going to wait for a second and let it slip off. And when your water has saturated that back paper, it's going to come off like this. So I like to take a pair of tweezers to put these on because I can really slip it around a little bit and see where I want to put it. And I can make sure that it's centered top and bottom, side to side. And I can pull on it more easily that way. So that looks fine. And I'm going to smooth it down, make sure there aren't any bubbles in it. I'll take it and put it on a piece of cardstock and bake it up. You'll do that with all of them. You're putting on your transfers, put them in the oven at about 250, 260 for 15 minutes. These are going to be rebaked when we put them together, so we don't need to bake them a long time this time. So I've come in closer to show you how to put the resin on. This one is already cured. I've got the bottle inverted for a minute, kind of get some of the bubbles out. And you start in the center and you squeeze some on. I've got about that much on to begin with. And you may or may not be able to see here on film it's got some bubbles in it. Well, that's what our torch is for. So we're not worried about that at all. Then you know I'm going to take my wonderful toothpicks and I'm going to start to move it to where I want it to go. And all I want this to do is go to the edge of the picture. You know, I tried taking these to the edge of the tiles and they didn't look as good. They looked a lot cuter just going to the edge of the transfer itself. So that's what we'll be doing. And you're kind of pulling it to the edge. And this doesn't have to be super exact either. You know, some people have mentioned that with UV resin, its doming properties cause it to pull toward the center and not be exactly at the edge of some things. Well, if you want to, you can do it in several applications and keep pushing it outward and stuff. But I've seen what they're talking about and honestly it looked fine. So yes, it's a doming product. It's made to pull toward the center and make kind of a high spot. That's what's really pretty about these. So if it doesn't go exactly to the edge of your transfer or your other project, I don't think you should worry about that. So I've taken the toothpick and pulled it to the edges. It looks really good. And that's just fine. You don't need to really mess with it too much more than that. And it's already got a nice high dome on it. I like the way it looks. So the reason that I placed this on a cardstock before I even, you know, did anything else is because I can put it into my UV light on the cardstock. And I've got this cut a little bit bigger so that I can hang on to the edge of it. So I'm going to pull the camera back now. Well, let me show you something real quick before I do that. This torch business, okay? This has got a whole bunch of bubbles on the side. And you know, I can only go in so close, otherwise my hands is looking monster hands. But this torch will take out all the bubbles that I can clearly see in this. And it's particularly bubbly right now, probably just the way I was holding it. But that doesn't matter, because you take this thing and you pass it over and there are zero bubbles. I mean, it's crystal glassy clear. So now you've got your 6 tiles that are cured and have resin on them. And that leaves you with your 6 raw tiles. And we're going to put them together. But first of all, they're going to need lines in them. They're going to need a little groove to put that elastic in. And I do it like this. It's just super easy. I've brought this red out just for some contrast so we can see a little bit better. But I can see where I want these holes to be based on the spacer. So if I put this here and I've got it centered pretty well, I can make a mark where I'm going to need to make my grooves. I'm going to want one there, and I'm going to want one there. We do the same on the other end. And now we've got a pretty good groove there. That's just about the right size for that elastic, and I know because I tried it a lot of times. If you've got a different size elastic, you can use a different means of making the groove, but really this works out fine. Here's my translucent liquid Sculpey, and I'm going to get a little bit with a brush. You could use a Q-tip. I don't recommend the nozzle for this because you need such a tiny amount. It's almost, you almost can't get too little. I'm going to put it along these edges like this, and a little bit in the middle. The only thing you really want to do is not glob it up too close to the edge because you don't want it to squeeze out. And also, you don't want to go really close to the groove, because you don't want to have glue in there. And once your adhesive is on the way you want it, just put it together. You'll see that the pressure of the toothpick into the clay has made it squeeze out just a little bit on that raw side. You just bring it in. It'll cooperate for you very well. So we're happy with this. It's a good hole, and we're going to bake these, all 6 of these, one more time for 30 minutes at 275, and in the next video we'll assemble our bracelet. I've laid them out like this because that gives me just about 8 inches, and that's a really good standard kind of size for this type of bracelet. But you can always go bigger or smaller, obviously just by removing pieces or adding pieces. And I've done that for special clients that wanted them a certain size. Also, I've got extras, and that's the fun of having extras, is that if I say, well, I really wanted a little bit more of this plaid kind of green, or I really wanted more of this turquoise, you can go ahead and make those decisions because you've got a couple extras to work with and you can match them up the way you want. And I'll show you how to make things with this extra one. That's a double tile like these are. And also I'll show you how to make things with single ones. So if you're going along and you see colors like these that just really cry out to go together, and yet they're different, I think these would make beautiful earrings, and I'll show you how to do that. They're nice and thin, and they're nice and light, so they really lend themselves to something like that. So for assembly, we've got our space bars, and we've got the number we need here. You're going to put a clip on the end of your stretch cord. I'm using this 8mm. It's perfect for these holes. And the way you decide what stretch cord to buy is just that one thing. It all works. It's all pretty sturdy. And so you're buying it based on the kind of hole you want to make and the project you want to make. This is a pretty fine little project, and it's going to need a fine little hole through it. But other things are larger, and some are even smaller. So I'm going to start with a clip on one end. I've cut my stretch cord long enough where I've got plenty of slack on each end for my knots. And with the clip on, I'm going to start threading these. I just turn them upside down because then I can see both of the holes I need to see, and put them in. Now the reason I've got this little piercing tool on hand is sometimes a hole fights you back just a little bit. Just a little tiny piece of clay maybe stuck in there. So really all you'll need to keep them clear is something like this. If you get in a bind and you made your holes and maybe got a little too much glue in there, or maybe you had a little problem, it's nothing like a Dremel, I'm telling you. This thing has really saved me a million times. You can get little tiny drill bits like that for them. So a Dremel is something that can be used by your whole family in all kinds of crafts. I wish that they would sponsor me and just keep giving me new ones, because this one I've just used and used. But that's just an idea if you ever really build something and you've had a problem with the holes. So we continue with this and we thread these together till we get to the end. Once you've got a row strung, put a clip in it and just do the other side. So these are all threaded up, and if you're very observant, you'll probably notice that I swapped out this Grosvenor Hotel London tile for this Loch Lomond Tarbet Hotel. I did that because I wanted to use this one for the necklace. I just like the amount of black in it, and you'll see. So anyway, that's what you can do. You can swap them out, put them in any combination you want. That's really a fun part of it. The first thing you want to do is pre-stretch your cord a little bit. It's got a certain amount of give and a certain amount of spring back, and so if you prep it up a little bit, it kind of gets it ready to be tied off. You pull it pretty tight and make a regular knot in it. Okay. Test that out, see if you like it. I do. I'm going to do it another time. Okay, I'll do it another time. I'll make the last one a double. Okay, that's going to be a good knot for you. It's not going to give you any problem. One little bit of insurance you can give yourself is to put a drop of jeweler's glue or clear nail polish on that knot. And a lot of people do that. So just dab it on there, let it dry. But I'm going to tie these off because I need to show you how to do it, and we'll finish it up. And we trim them. And you don't have to be right on top of the knot. I leave about 1/4 inch because I'm going to pull the knots into the tile or into the spacer to hide them. And we've got our bracelet. And you can do this with pictures of family. It'd be really neat to give to a mom or a grandma because you can buy paper that you can make your own transfers with. So it's just something to think about. I'll show you what else we can do with our little tiles. And now you can kind of see why I always suggest shopping for your components after you've seen the video, because you probably have all kinds of ideas by now about how you want to do yours, what colors you want to use, and what kind of transfers you want to use, whether you want to make your own. So I thought I'd show you a couple of things now that we're finished with the main project that you can do with your extra tiles. And here's one I want to make a pendant out of. This is the one I swapped out because I just kind of have a thing for it. I like the blackness and I like the colors. And what I did with it is I drilled a hole in the center. So I took my Dremel, but you can use a little pin drill. They're really inexpensive little hand drills. This stuff is so soft, it's really great to work with. You can even use a heated needle to poke a hole afterwards, and that's just good to know. So what I did is I drilled a small starter hole, and I'm going to put these eye screws in. They're little bitty things. You can get them in the jewelry department, and you can get them in the scrapbooking department. And I don't scrapbook, so I don't really know what they really do in the scrapbooking department, but they're pretty cool. So what you do is put a little bit of super glue on these eye screws, because they're not going to be coming out. And we're going to take it and put it in here to the hole and actually screw it in the starter hole. So that's why it's so secure. Between the super glue and the actual fact that it is a screw really helps it to support the metal in the clay. I'm going to put that in there and we'll let that dry while we work on the other side. Got in there pretty tight. Don't over torque it until you split out your clay, okay? Because it's secure just as it is, and it looks really cute. And then we're going to put eye pins up here as well. So I've got my 3 eye pins in there, and I'm going to make a little charm to hang from that center. Of course, that's optional, but this is really based on what you got laying around the house. It's really fun to just pour through your stash of spare beads, and over time you do accumulate these because every project doesn't use every bead. So I keep mine sorted by color, and I can always find something interesting on a moment's notice and stick it on there. So I've got this little faceted jet drop. I love this thing, but I've only got one, so I've never made earrings with it or anything. And I'm going to hang it from there. To do that, I put an eye pin through it. This could have been a head pin, but there's a big hole down here, and the head doesn't hold the bead on, so I used an eye pin. That's always an option for you. So you can see I made a bend in my eye pin. Then I'm going to make a cut in it. I'm going to cut it to the length I want. I want a big enough circle to clear this loop and to look nice and to dangle freely. And what I do with my circles is there's a place on my finger where I know what size it's going to turn out. right there is really short for a small loop and medium loop, big ones out here. Once you get used to kind of using your fingers as guides, it's pretty handy because now you can make a whole bunch of these and all the loops are going to be the same size. So, you know, you kind of get your jewelry on here and get used to making things the way you want to make them. So once I've made that cut, I'm going to make a nice loop in it, but I'm only going to do half. I'm going to grab it with this end and I'm going to bend it as far as my wrist will go and then let it go. And you do that with all eye loops. Okay, people tell me all the time, well, how do you get them round? You know, how come mine are flattened or don't look right? I think the main mistake that's made is that people try to turn it all in one. They try to take it and loop it all in one motion, and then it's kind of, you know, flattened and oval and doesn't look good. So all eye pin making is that motion. So you open it halfway. Now if I weren't going to hang it here, I'd go ahead and close it with the second motion. But I'm not going to do that right now because I'm going to put it on here. So you've got one rotation. You stick on what you're going to stick on there, and now you can close it. See, and that way you don't have to, you know, close it all the way and open it back up, because that fatigues the metal and that's how you get broken stuff. And I'm going to close it shut. These bathtub chains look so cute with this kind of project because it's a little bit edgy and young looking, you know, it doesn't look stuffy, fancy. And the bathtub chain kind of says that, like, yeah, this is what it is, and it's got a casual feel to it. I like the way the chain goes side to side across the top. It gives it interest. And it's much easier than having to affix chains to either side with extra rings. And you can do that. It's really fun if you're making something, you know, kind of dressy. But this is a great look for just a really cute, fast pendant made out of leftover tiles. I'm going to set this aside and let me show you the earrings. And these are really easy as can be too. See? So I pierced the little holes in there, and I'm going to just put rings in them. So I'll open these rings. You know, when you open a ring that already exists, you do it like this. You grab it and you take it in opposite directions. You never want to take a ring and open it like that because it pretty much ruins it. It doesn't ever hang right again. It's never really round again after that. So that's just a FYI. So okay, so I'm going to put that into my little tile. These are so adorable. And then all I've got to do is open these rings to hang them on the wire. You know, don't mess around too much with opening the rings that are on these. I've had them fatigue out a couple times and snap off. You know, you don't really know what these are made of all the time, and maybe they're just really brittle. But open the ring that you're using rather than opening up the ring that's on the earring, okay? So make sure your earring wire is facing the way it needs to face. I've only done that a few times, hung them backwards. Makes you feel really sharp. Okay, and you have the cutest earring. And you know, I really like this because this is so lightweight and comfortable. And it really says something. I think it's quite the conversation starter. So there we have it. Bracelet, earrings, pendant. All pretty easy. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And we'll get ready for the next class.